Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get those questions in. We got a lot to talk about this morning. But before we do that, I also want to give a big thanks to Duck Camp, as the entire week for the college football playoff right here on Texas Football is brought to you by the good folks at Duck Camp. And with that said, guys, let's talk about the college football playoff, more specifically Texas versus Clemson, as you can see here. And I'll move this down a little bit. But the Longhorns right now, 11.5-point favorite. Of course, it opened at 10.5. But it's game week.
It's game week. And for the chat, I want to ask you guys something, because y'all asked us something late last week. Is this the biggest game in the history of DKR Stadium? That's the question to the chat. I'm interested to see the answers there, but it's obviously the first playoff game I ever played at DKR. Look, Texas is favored by this number for a reason. They just got to go out and execute and play the game. It would be nice to see the first clean game offensively in a few weeks, Bobby. But I think Texas is, both these teams are they see great opportunity. Clemson has a chance. It's right up Dabo's alley. You know, us against the world. Nobody thinks we should be here, blah, 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 blah. It's right up his alley. And for Texas and Sark, it's like, go play to the standard we have. We haven't played to the standard recently like we can, and we have the capability to. And the challenge to this team would be, if we're going to go out and win a national championship, we got to play to the standard. We got to play cleaner brand of football than we have on offense. And we got to just go execute, and we got to beat the man in front of us. And Sark can scheme around the rest, and PK and Johnny Nansen. But a huge opportunity for Clemson, huge opportunity for Texas, because I really do believe if Texas gets this first one, then I think they're going to get the second one. And then we'll get to the semifinals against Oregon or whoever in Jerry World and let the chips fall.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? They got to get off to the start, Jerry, that they really want. And this week is a big week of practice. The Longhorns and Coach Steve Sarkisian will be meeting with the media today. I'm actually in Austin getting ready to go over that. I'm on campus right now as we speak. I will say this. So the players meet with the media at 10. Steve Sarkisian meets with the media at 11. CJ Vogel and I will be there and have a direct report immediately following that. But you talked early in that discussion there, Jerry, about this setting up perfectly for an us against the world type game for Dabo Swinney. That's what he prides himself in. That's how he motivates his troops. It always has been. It had been until this ACC championship game where they held on to beat SMU. It had been a disappointing year for Cade Klubnik and the Clemson Tigers overall, even though Klubnik, who's returning home to play against the Longhorns, Austin Westlake grad. Congrats to the Chaps, by the way, beating the tar out of North Shore over the weekend. But my point being, that is right up his alley, trying to rally the troops late in the process. Interesting too, Jerry, the line went from 10.5 at the open to 11.5, and the over-under went down 2 points. People expecting a little bit more of a tighter scoring game, I think, right now. Clemson has scored points. They've had problems keeping people from scoring points this year. That has been their bigger issue. What does that mean for Texas? I think as we look forward to this week, the one thing I'm going to ask Steve Sarkisian today is success in the red zone, and how does he quantify it, and what is he thinking right now as it relates to that? Because Texas has not scored a lot of points in the last 3 games. Part of that is their lack of overall success in the red zone and creating touchdowns instead of field goals. That's just the bottom line for Texas right now. To be able to beat a Clemson team that does score points, even if their defense may not be as good as Texas's or what have you, Texas got to score touchdowns, not field goals this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I think anybody can win a game. Don't get me wrong, but I'm in the opinion Clemson is a smoke and mirrors 10-3 team. Sorry, Kuzi. I like TJ Parker. I like Peter Woods, but they just, I don't know. The 5 games against 7-5 teams are better they've played this year. They're going up 429 yards per game. In those games, they scored 3 against Georgia, 24 against Pitt, 21 against Louisville, 14 against South Carolina, and they had their first 30-point output against SMU in a game they only had 326 yards. So I think the health of Phil Maffa is also going to be interesting for Clemson because we had Larry Williams on last Friday who does a good job covering Clemson. He says he's been pass proing with one shoulder and at times has ran out of bounds. Well, you can't do that in this game. This is a win or go home game, and your number 2 running back's now out for the season for Clemson. He got hurt on the kickoff return against SMU. So Phil Maffa's got to go. He can't protect his shoulder anymore. This is win or go home. So he's going to put himself in a little danger against this Texas defense. I think the whole key for Texas is the Clemson offensive line. If Texas wins up front without bringing the extra number, because Clemson's got really good wideouts and tight end, maybe the best combination of that Texas has faced this year. But the Clemson offensive line, are they going to hold up against Texas? 5-man pressure, 4 and 5-man pressure, because Texas has 39 sacks this year with a low blitz percentage. That's a pretty big number for a low blitz percentage. So I'm interested to see how Clemson's offensive line handles that. But I agree, Bobby. Fast start for Texas, and a clean. And I'm not saying perfect, but cleaner game. No turnovers in your end of the field. No turnovers in the red zone going in the score. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to play a turnover-free game, but the critical turnovers, the ones that can switch momentum and cause you to lose a game you're supposed to win, make it a game when it shouldn't be a game necessarily, not meaning like you're up 14 instead of up 7, right? And giving a team hope. So it's going to be interesting. I think Texas is ready. Bobby, we'll also find out, I think, from Kelvin Banks and Isaiah Bond where they're at headed into this week. I know everybody's going to come back and say, well, Kelvin Banks said he was going to play. I get it. Kelvin Banks said he was going to play. He's also not the Texas training staff, and he's not the Texas coaches that watched him move this week. I think early this week, him and Isaiah Bond, how they're moving in practice, how their bodies are reacting is going to tell the story. You expect anybody to go that can go.
Yeah. In Kelvin, in the I think it was either the Art Outland or Lombardi Award acceptance, he intimated that he's going to go. Right now, I forgot to mention this. I said we were going to see Sark at 11 for a press conference. There's also an open media availability this afternoon to watch the team. So I'm gonna be over there. I'm not necessarily only going to be watching guys like Kelvin Banks and Quinn Ewers and Isaiah Bond. I'm really going to try to pay attention today, Jerry, to some of the younger guys to see how they're coming along, whether it's Brandon Baker or Parker Livingstone, Alex January, Melvin Hills, those type of guys. But you're right. We'll get a glimpse and hear from Sark also on how Bond and Kelvin Banks are doing right now as well. I do want to say this. You mentioned the biggest game ever right there off the top. We talked about that on Friday, and I got a note from someone that said the biggest game ever that he can remember was 1970 when Arkansas came to Texas a year after 1969. Texas ended up winning the national championship again in 1970. And it was a game also, Jerry and Blake, that was in the month of December, by the way. We had thought, hey, there hadn't been anything after A&M, but there actually was a game in December against Arkansas. I believe it was December 5th, 1970. He said that was the biggest game ever in DKR that he could remember.
Hey, also, there was a game in December back in, I believe it was 41. I'm trying to find it, but they played against Oregon. So, you and I thought if there was one, it would probably be around World War II era. And indeed it was. So did find that out over the weekend as well, but they played Oregon in December.
Well, I think they did the Arkansas thing because the previous year they had rescheduled it for television in 1969 late in the year, and because they thought the two teams would be really good. They did the same thing the next year, and it was a return trip to Austin. So 4 played 1, and Texas won again, beating Arkansas.
Hey, by the way, I said this. I kind of mentioned this late on Longhorn live stream last night, but you may see Bobby. You guys may see some really young players. Lance Jackson is in Austin, and taking his physical this morning, I believe. And if everything checks out, he is going to practice a little bit leading up to bowl week. And there's a possibility he won't be the only one. There may be 3 or 4 guys We'll see on some D linemen that kind of get some extra practice time in as long as
I'm going to love that, dude. That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, so I don't know if he'll be able to practice today, but I talked to him yesterday afternoon, and him and his family were en route to Austin, and he was supposed to do the medical checkups, everything they do for the new enrollee guys. And again, if everything went smoothly there, then Texas wants a few of those guys to get some extra practices in.
Well, the first couple of days, remember, they have to do the acclimation thing, so he certainly can't be hitting or anything like that, but being able to see him on campus would be ideal. Hey, we need to do our first ad break, if you don't mind, guys. We would like to thank our sponsor, John Donovan, President, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John is a proud Texas Ex's Life member whose wife and 6 siblings are also UT grads. This UT family passion is what led John to brand his firm, Longhorn Wealth Management Group, and dedicate it to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation for more than 30 years. John was able to enjoy the off weekend by celebrating his birthday. Happy birthday, John, which reminded him to let all OTF members know that John and the Longhorn Wealth team want to give you the gift of a free 90-minute consultation to help you learn how John can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and secure your legacy. Get ready for this Saturday's Longhorn playoff game versus Clemson. Take a moment to either call John and his team at Longhorn Wealth at 972-707-4900 or go online at www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your free consultation soon. John hopes to see lots of OTF members in Austin this weekend as he helps cheer our Longhorns on to victory. Hook them from John Donovan and the group at Longhorn Wealth Management, 972-707-4900.
By the way, if you're wondering, it's 72 degrees in the classroom Bobby's in if he looks over his right shoulder. But it's better than reading the 85.
Hey, it says 68.
Okay. If better than reading the 85. That'd be better.
Oh, hey, we're getting a couple of comments in the chat or questions like this one from Kenny Joe. Is it true that Big 12 officials will be the referee crew? That is not true. We have confirmed it to be Big 10 officials will be. And if Texas wins and they play Arizona State, that will also be Big 10 officials as well. So there you go on that one.
Big 10 officials, by the way, apparently, and this is just talking to some people, they call less holding and more pass interference. Just going to put that out there for you guys. Yeah. So that's the difference between, as we've seen this year, right? There is definitely a difference in how referee crews by conference call games. There were more holding calls in a Texas game this year than any of the last 15 years, I believe, is what we went back and looked.
Wow.
And so it's crazy. My point being, conferences have proclivities, and their referee groups do, and the Big 10 apparently calls holding less, pass interference more. So if Manny Muhammad or Jade Barron get a little handsy outside, don't be surprised.
Well, let's talk about another.
But I will say this: wait, hopefully the opposite is true as well, because I think there's been a few calls that haven't gone our way against Ryan Wingo in particular, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the other hot topic surrounding the Texas program. And of course, that is the portal, I guess, surrounding every program currently. The portal, Texas with 3 additions over the weekend. I'm going to let y'all run that down for people that may have missed it.
Yeah, I think, look, Jack Boom Easter is a huge pickup addition out of the portal at punter. And, you know, I think one of the biggest things going wrong in our industry is portal prospect player rankings. I think it's a disaster. This guy's a 2-time all-conference pick as a punter, and he's not even ranked by the people that rank portal players. Well, he's first-team all Pac-12 and second-team all Big 12. I mean, he has got an NFL leg, and he is a tremendous directional punter. Big addition for the Longhorns. I mean, there's not many 2-time all-conference players in the portal. So Texas got one of those. I think that's a huge addition. And then on the defensive line, Cole Brevard, who, look, he played 525 snaps over the center in Power 4 football. See, there you see 6'3", 335. He's not going to put up the big stats. He plays his role over the ball, but over 525 snaps over the center as a power 4 player. That's a big number, and he is a big need filler for Texas there. And I think guy's been in a college weight strength and conditioning program for 4 years. He came out as a 4-star prospect out of Carmel, Indiana, signed with Penn State, then transferred to Purdue, but a really good need fill for Texas there. And he was originally he also visited SMU, also was looking at A&M. But I think that was a big win. And I think Brad Spence, you look at all these portal rankings, this guy's vastly underrated. I mean, Brad Spence is one of the fastest rising linebackers in the SEC. This year 2 for him, and it's a true year 2 for him out of Klein Forest High, 55 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. His last 3 games of the regular season, 19 tackles, 3 sacks, a sack in each game. He's going to be on NFL radar starting this year after his sophomore season, and a guy that can play middle back, or he can play off the edge and rush the passer. He brings even more pass rush ability, and he brings an SEC physicality with size to the linebacker position. Bobby, and I'm here to tell you, if you tell me you got Anthony Hill and you got LaFau and you got Anthony Smith in year 2 and you got Brad Spence, I think the linebacker, and I'm nothing negative, I think the linebacker crew is going to be better next year than they were this year.
I think that's totally possible. You certainly have more long-term upside.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's no offense to David Benda and Mo Blackwell, but they are very unlikely to be NFL players. Whereas Brad Spence, to your point, Jerry, has some NFL upside. And Anthony Smith does as well. He just happens to be young, so he's got another year of seasoning. Same with Leonga LaFau. And Anthony Hill is who he is. The thing I would mention about these commitments that I think is particularly important, Texas had 4 guys on campus over the last week, essentially Thursday and Friday. 3 of the 4 committed. That's a pretty high hit rate, Jerry. They left signing. The one player that did not sign is Max Clare, a tight end, 6'4", 240, out of Purdue. Now, he went and took a visit to A&M this weekend, did not commit there. We believe that Oregon and Oklahoma are also going to be involved. Oregon being involved is somewhat interesting because they already have a top tight end on campus right now. But Oregon did pick up a Purdue teammate, just like Texas picked up a Purdue teammate in Cole Brevard, right? The Oregon teammate is Dylan Thieneman, a defensive back, the safety that is probably one of the top 2 or 3 safeties in the portal. Oregon reaching into Purdue for that. You know, what does that mean? Is that a tie for Max Clare out west? We'll see. But I will say this: Texas feels like they're in the race there. We'll see what happens later today or into this week as Clare tries to narrow his decisions and make a final decision. But 3 out of 4, Jerry, pretty strong. They've got other guys coming in this week. We'll talk about those guys in a little bit too. But look, the thing about it is, and let's compare this, say, to A&M's class of portal or OU's, which is something you and CJ talked about yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma has 18 scholarship players in the portal. And some really impactful players for them that were injured this year. They only have a punter right now. I mean, so they have a lot of holes and they aren't filling them. That's going to be interesting to see where Oklahoma goes in the portal. I mean, that is a tough spot to be in. I mean, and their guys that have left have all gone to Power 5 schools. I'm not saying I think Jackson Arnold was a good take by Auburn, because I certainly don't. But you know, that safety goes to Arkansas, Walker, who had 24 tackles for him. They haven't really lost impact guys on defense. Oklahoma's lost impact guys on offense that maybe were hurt. I mean, they've lost the whole receiver corps. I mean, essentially everybody's gone. And Brennan Thompson to Mississippi State, the tight end, Bauer Sharp to LSU. I mean, you just go down the list. Jackson Arnold to Auburn. Nick Anderson will go to either A&M or LSU. More than likely, and then Andrell Anthony, Jaleel Farouk. I mean, and the offensive lineman, the Washington, they've lost a lot. So they've had some real holes to fill. Texas A&M is interesting to me because I'm sure they're doing jumping jacks over their portal additions. But
Micah Hudson, by the way, late last night.
Yeah, I mean, Micah Hudson couldn't get on the field for Texas Tech. So let's see where it goes for him. You know, couldn't get on the field for Tech this year. So now he's gone through the de-recruiting process and maybe the learning phase, and that always helps going into year 2 when a kid transfers. That's the way college coaches think about it anyways. But let's see what happens. You can't get on the field at Texas Tech. I mean, are you going to go in and suddenly be a star in the SEC? Probably not. So A&M fans should probably keep those expectations realistic. Julian Humphrey, good player that lost his job at Georgia. So not a starter. Jacob Zeno didn't start this year. So, I mean, a good experienced player to go with Marcel Reed to create competition there, but not a guy that's been a full-time starter in college football and is in year 6, obviously coming up year 6. So I think they've had some key players come in, but the expectation should be more here than here for those guys, in my opinion.
All right. Well, we got more questions coming in that we're going to get to here momentarily. We also are going to talk about the other games that are going on in the college football playoff. But
what other games? What other games?
There are a few.
Ryan Day's coaching for his job. That's a big game.
that and a few others that people might be interested in. But first, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone about Duck Camp.
Yeah, absolutely. This week it's a Duck Camp college football playoff week. We're happy to do this. I want to make an announcement real quick. Jerry and I actually on Thursday and Friday morning are going to be over at the Duck Camp store in East Austin off of Cesar Chavez. That's old First Street. Come join us out there. We'll be out there from 8 until about 10 in the morning, and then stay after a little bit, hang out with folks. If y'all want to come out, may bring some donuts if y'all want to do that as well. But Duck Camp gear is made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, and guess what? Football to watch. They like doing all that stuff. So they built a company centered on it, based here in Austin and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. I'm wearing one of their hoodies right now. Absolutely love it. From opening day to game day, they've got you covered at Duck Camp. They believe you can't just sit around and wait for adventure to come to you. You have to get out there, stay out there, and make the most of each and every second. Here's the great seasons, y'all. Yes, hunting and football. Shop hunting gear today at duckcamp.com. Great Christmas gifts out there for you guys. And we absolutely love their gear. I believe Blake's wearing one of their T-shirts this morning as well. Good stuff all around. Again, duckcamp.com. Make sure you guys check it out. We'll be out there Thursday and Friday morning as well.
Wow. This is some news from the chat brings the news. Mike Norvell's pledging half of his salary to NIL Collective. Woo. Wow. Wow.
It's what happens when you're 2-10.
Wow.
Same thing happened to Brian Kelly.
Yeah, he's pledged $1 million.
These guys I think it's part of it's trying to keep their gig.
Absolutely it is. This is what happens when you lose. I mean, look, Mike Norvell's willing to take a salary cut when you go 2-10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by the way, somebody is saying that Ryan Day's not coaching for his job because Ross Bjork gave him the he's back thing. I mean, I guess
Ross Bjork doesn't make the decisions there any more than he made them at A&M.
If Tennessee goes in and wins 21-7 and Ohio State can't score or something like that, then all bets are off, in my opinion. And they may keep the guy. Look, but I mean,
for the second consecutive bowl game, by the way, don't forget what the egg they laid against Missouri last year in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah,
in their bowl game.
So I think it could get bad enough where he's in danger. And me personally, I could be wrong on that, but that's me personally.
I agree 100% with Jerry. Who are the other? What are the other games we need to look at other than Ohio State and Tennessee, which I believe is a Friday game? Is it not, Blake?
Yeah. Let me put it up here. Sorry about that. We were having a couple problems there, but got it going now.
Oh,
so
no,
there you
it's
go.
Notre Dame Friday.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing: we don't see it on this, but I think it's 24-5 degrees. Indiana and Notre Dame, they're accustomed to it. SMU gets here's your playoff reward. Go to State College, Happy Valley, and play in 15-degree wind chill. And people in chat last night were saying, well, it gets cold in Dallas. It does, but and then Tennessee and Ohio State, which I think that should have been flipped. I think Tennessee should have hosted that game. But these are all cold weather games for teams. And Ohio State's used to it. Penn State's used to it. Indiana and Notre Dame. But it just brings in the element of, 20 miles an hour with a 15-mile-an-hour wind gust, and your kicker can't get 47-yarder to the crossbar to lose a game. Quarterback with smaller hands may struggle throwing the football in that colder, windy weather, drier hands. It's a quarterback that hasn't ever played in those conditions, ball protection with the quarterback and those wide receivers, because those hits are a little bit harder in that weather than you're accustomed to.
Yeah, no thanks. They make dome stadiums for a reason. I'm glad Texas is playing where Texas is playing. It's not weather conducive to both teams being at their best. And I think that's the shame, right? The playoffs, while this is it's part of the game, right? You have home and away and all this stuff, and it's part of what we've decided to do with the playoffs, pushing it out to 12 teams at least for now. My take on it is that you're not giving teams to play their best. I mean, if these games were in domes up there, like in Indianapolis, for example, maybe the Big Ten puts their team in Indianapolis or somewhere else that has a dome stadium, and maybe Texas, instead of having a home game, plays at Jerry World or something like that. I think it'd make for much better games, but for some reason, I thought Tennessee-Ohio State was the night game on Friday night, but it's Indiana-Notre Dame. What do you think of that game, Jerry? Notre Dame versus Indiana. Look, I will say this. The highest-rated Pro Football Focus quarterback in the college football playoffs is Curtis Rourke at Indiana.
And I think he has the highest QBR period as well in the playoffs. So Chat can correct me on that. I think he's 1 or 2, maybe 1. Yeah, I think that's an interesting game. I think Cignetti's a tremendous coach. And by the way, 2 transfer quarterbacks right out of the gate for these teams. I just think Notre Dame's going to have too much. I think the running attack, the running back's a stud, obviously, for Notre Dame. Riley Leonard is a dual threat guy. I just think Notre Dame's going to get through this game. As I do think Notre Dame's been playing better of late. Now, I'm not saying they're going to beat Georgia, because I'm not sure I go there. I think Georgia may just overwhelm them a little bit. But I think Notre Dame will handle Indiana a Friday night, because I think the run game with Love and Riley Leonard, who are very similar, by the way. But Riley Leonard's really come on for Notre Dame. I think their passing game's gotten more in sequence in the second half of the season. And I just think Notre Dame's going to have too much talent for Indiana. It's going to be similar to the Ohio State-Indiana game, where they coached them up. They do a great job in there. They have some really good players at spots, but they're not going to have enough for Notre Dame when it comes down to it.
Hey, we have a couple of people like Thunder Pup. It says, excluding Texas, any potential upsets. Mike D says, if you have to pick an upset game from the playoff, what's your pick? Mike says his is SMU. What would y'all pick for an upset?
I would not pick SMU. I think SMU is going to have a hard time against Penn State, because Penn State gets on top of you. The only thing is they got James Franklin as their head coach. And I don't know when the last time is he won a big – I guess when's the last time he won a big game? Like 10 years ago? Yeah. So, I mean, that's one. So I could see SMU. I guess if I'm going to pick one as an upset, mine would be Indiana over Notre Dame, because I do think – here's what I believe. If Indiana gets up on Notre Dame somehow, say 14-0, 14-3, Notre Dame does not have a comeback type of offense. And there's been a couple weeks off, so your offense is naturally going to lag a little. And I think that is probably it. The other thing I would say is, if you looked at that list of teams, something that grabbed my eye, by the way, Texas has the biggest point margin in Vegas out of that group. All the others are between 7, 7.5, and 8.5. Ohio State's favored by 7.5, I think it was.
Yeah, I'll bring it back up.
Yeah, I mean, there is. Look at it. Texas by 11.5, Notre Dame by 7.5, Penn State by 8.5, Ohio State by 7. If I had to choose an upset and it wasn't Texas, for example, I would pick Indiana over Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm SMU's a trendy pick. I'm not there. Look, I would say anybody can win these games, but Penn State is coming off of 38 points and 518 yards against Oregon. I mean, that's actually interesting. And I don't think Oregon's defense is very good. And is that going to be an issue for them, which we'll talk about later, because Oregon's played 3 teams in the playoff: Boise, Ohio State, and Penn State, and all of them have scored 30 against them. So, and 2 of those were in Eugene. So, is Oregon's defense going to be an issue for them, even though they're 12-0? But I think Penn State is too much talent on both sides of the line in this game, and they have 2 NFL running backs. Alar could be the first quarterback drafted. He may be the best pro prospect of any quarterback in college football right now, long term. I'm not saying he's going to be the best, but he may be the best prospect. So I think Penn State's recruits at a high level. They develop guys on the offensive and defensive lines, and I think that's going to be an issue for SMU in this game.
It could be too much for James Franklin to mess up. The advantage could be too deep, right? That's what you're saying? Yeah, I agree with that.
I think of all the games, I mean, Tennessee, Ohio State's interesting because last time out, Ohio State could not score the football at home. And I know Michigan is a good defense. We've talked about it all year. They're good defense with a bad offense that can't support their defense. So the defense kind of had a few ups and downs because they just get no support from the offense, and that takes a toll as the season moves along. I think Tennessee's really good on defense, though, in this game. Howard's going to have to beat them. And now the flip side is Nico going to be accurate in this game in Columbus when they need him to be accurate? I don't really care about completion percentage for him. Is he going to be accurate when he needs to be accurate for Tennessee in this game? Because I think Tennessee can more than hold their own on the offensive and defensive lines in this game. And I think and the running back is really good. They can run it downhill on you.
They can, and I would add this. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, Tennessee and Ohio State. But I think that Ohio State's offensive line has been drastically overrated all year.
No doubt.
And there's a reason why they've lagged late. So, I think it's their offensive line.
All right, guys, we got a lot of super chats and a lot of questions that we need to get to. And I want to start with this one once again from Koozie, the Clemson fan, with the super chat. Thank you, Koozie. He says, I hope Quinn is ready to meet TJ Parker. Go Tigers.
Hey, TJ Parker, good player, good young edge from Phoenix City Central. Was a top 125 level kid in the country. Has 11 sacks this year. 6 of those sacks came in 2 games. 4 of those were against Pittsburgh. A future NFL guy. It was interesting to hear Larry Williams talk about TJ Parker Friday, talk about how he had migraine issues. And they finally got that kind of leveled out in the second half of the year. You've seen his play kind of ascend quickly. So one of those things you don't think about very often, that, all the things that go into the games and the games within the games and the health of players. And that's not one you hear very often. So, but really talented. Him, Peter Woods, see where K-Part is coming off his injury. Clemson's got good front players. They've had good front players for a while. They may not have 5 first-round picks like they did on their national championship team, but they still have really good players up front. And TJ Parker is one of those. And hey, bring all your Clemson fans over. We have a watch with us during the game. That's a lot of fun. Come on over.
Then our next one here is from Edgar. Thank you, sir. And he says, how does Sark bake and new surprises on offense and not revert to the plays that led to tackle for losses against Georgia? Hook 'em.
You don't play Georgia. That would be the start, right? I mean, I will say this. I mean, look, Clemson could have as good a front as anybody except Georgia and be really close to Georgia. Like, I think there's a couple things going in Clemson's favor here that Jerry mentioned that are kind of intangibles about how Dabo likes to rally the troops and all this other stuff. But the facts are Clemson has one of the top defensive fronts Texas will face this year. No doubt about it. Very similar, in my opinion, to Oklahoma's, where if you remember for the first quarter and a half, Texas didn't move the ball against OU and then all of a sudden found the running game. I think Clemson has that sort of defensive front in that similar ability. So maybe not quite as good as Georgia, but pretty darn good. And then the bigger piece for me is how Texas stops Cade Klubnik. I know that he is lacking a run game right now, most likely, or at least partially because of the issues at running back that they have. But their issues are very similar to what Texas had early in the year without Cedric Baxter. And they found somebody like Trey Wisner. Now, the issue for me is this will be unquestionably the best quarterback Texas has faced all season long. He doesn't turn the ball over. Klubnik has not turned the ball over much at all this year. He is a talented runner. The only thing that I would add to that for him is that, can he do it alone, so to speak, without an offensive line that has been somewhat maligned and against a Texas defense that is one of the best, if not the best in the country. So add all that together. I think it's a stout matchup for Texas. And, we look at it, if you were, looking at that line, who would you say? Clemson, Blake Bryan with a good one here. Clemson has the worst rush defense in the playoff. All right. Well, Texas better run the ball.
My favorite super chatter's back.
Yep. All right. Long story short, there are pieces of this Clemson team that should concern people. That's my opinion. Agree to disagree on Klubnik eval. Who's the better quarterback that Texas has faced? Carson Beck. Beck,
talent-wise, is better.
I mean,
played like it.
Texas hasn't faced a better quarterback than Cade Klubnik. I'm not saying he's all world or anything, guys.
Yeah.
But there's not been a quarterback that has his numbers.
Yeah. No, Texas hasn't faced a schedule full of stud quarterbacks.
At all.
No.
At all.
And I'm not saying Klubnik's a stud, but I'm just saying off the Texas schedule. I mean, Michigan, no. ULM Monroe, UTSA, no. Mississippi State, no. Just go down the list. A&M, no. Florida, no. Aiden Warner. Georgia, Beck is very talented, but hasn't played up to it. Good luck in his recovery, by the way. Yeah, so they haven't faced a bunch of high-end quarterbacks
by far.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that he's going to –
Diego Pavia, is he better with Clemson's talent? Maybe. Maybe he is. He may not be a better chance of playing in the league than Cade, but he may be, if you put him on Clemson's team with those three wideouts and tight ends, he might be as good. Somebody's asking best defense Clemson has faced.
Yeah, that's actually going to be the next question.
There you go. Highest ranked defense Clemson's faced is 17th, South Carolina, who can really rush the passer. 30th ranked defense, SMU. 43rd ranked defense, Georgia. Pitt, 67th. Louisville, 70th. And those are the five teams they've played with a 7-5 record this season or better. And what were they in those games? 2-3. So 2-3, 4-point win over Pitt. Then obviously the last second field goal win over SMU. Been close games other than Georgia. But yeah, Clemson's offense has not faced really good defenses this year either. It's kind of why look, anybody can win a game. I think they're a little bit of a smoke and mirrors 10-3 team, though. I mean, those five opponents defensively, Clemson's given up 429 yards a game. They give up big plays on defense and don't stop the run against really good teams necessarily well either. Then offensively, Klubnik's he's only thrown 2 picks in those games, but his legs against Georgia, SMU weren't really a factor as much as they are in some other games. So I think that's going to be another big part of this is if Texas makes Cade one-dimensional, then he's going to have to make throws against the best defense he's faced all season. They're a little different level throws. But Antonio Williams and Bryant Wesco are NFL players at wideout. The other young kid, TJ Moore, maybe I saw him in high school, really talented. And Brennan Stool at tight end was one of the top kids in the country. It'll probably be in the NFL in some level. So they have the skill guys. That's why I think the pass rush is huge for Texas in this game.
All right, Jerry Hamilton, if you don't mind, we need you to let everyone out there know about Manscaped.
Well, look, I mean, here's the handyman. But if we're not talking about the handyman today, we're talking about what's happening to Oklahoma in the portal. It's the Beard and Balls bundle. All right, fellas, the holiday season is here. And trust me, don't want to be the guy showing up with tangled tinsel in your ornaments. Luckily, our friends at Manscaped have got you covered from head to, well, down the chimney with the Beard and Balls bundle. This part's for you, Oklahoma, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0, what everybody's doing to you in the portal right now, and the Beard Hedger. This bundle will make sure you're a gift worth unwrapping. Get ready for those mistletoe moments and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code ONTEXAS, all caps, at manscaped.com. Yes, Oklahoma fans, you can use that code too. This cuts through the North Pole of bushes with ease. Gentle on your most delicate Christmas ornaments. The two skin-safe blade heads for the beard trimmer has versatility, whether after that tidy trim or that smooth, festive finish. Again, join the 11 million men worldwide and growing who trust Manscaped to stay sharp this holiday season. Get the Beard and Balls bundle today and slay your grooming routine. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code ONTEXAS, all caps, at manscaped.com. Again, that's 20% off plus free shipping with the code ONTEXAS, all caps, at manscaped.com, because Santa isn't the only one who needs his sack well groomed this year. And again, for the Oklahoma fans out there that are struggling with the portal, baby, you're just getting Manscaped, but you can order some with ONTEXAS, all caps too.
Thank you, Jerry. Really appreciate that. And I also appreciate the folks at Factor because, well, notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't. Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Factor has easy, nutritious options to help keep you fueled and feeling your best. Don't let the shorter days of winter slow you down. Let Factor take shopping, prepping, cooking, and cleaning up off your daily list of things to do. And they have something for everyone. You can find guilt-free comfort foods like home-style chicken and gravy, loaded mashed potato pork chops, which is delicious, by the way, feel-good vegan options like sweet potato and chickpea curry, or even globally inspired flavors like Peruvian shrimp. The variety they offer is unmatched, I promise you. And I told y'all last week I've eaten it daily since being back home. That continued through the weekend. Every single meal I've had from them is phenomenal, and that's no bull. That's 100% true. Heck, even this morning I woke up, had one of their wellness shots to get my day started. You can't go wrong with whatever you pick at Factor, so get started today. Head to factormeals.com/Texas50. Use promo code Texas50 to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Again, code Texas50 at factormeals.com/Texas50 to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is still active. And we want to thank both them and Manscaped for sponsoring today. And more questions here, guys. Let's get right to them because we do have a lot this morning. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, Jack, thank you, Jack. He says we curb stomped the Hogs in 1970, 42-7, Bobby.
Took their will, Jack. I was not around. I was 1 year old at the time, but I think that that led Texas to its second consecutive national championship back to back in 69 and 70. Texas did lose the bowl game that year to Notre Dame, but the bowl games at that time were considered exhibitions at some level, and so Texas awarded the 69 and 70 national championship.
And then UT Tyler guy with a lighthearted question here. Everyone's favorite donut? Mine's maple bacon. Hook 'em. Not a donut guy.
What?
No.
I used to be. I try not to be now, but I look, you can't be just a drive through and Shipley's donut holes on the move.
But
not if they're hot. They need to have some time to cool off.
I'll just say this. My favorite, I found a little favorite donut spot in Austin now. That is not Round Rock Donuts because I don't stay on that side of town. Donut Taco Palace. It's good. And they do have maple bacon. I'll just put it out there.
I think my thing is when you live in another state and they don't have Shipley's, it really makes you appreciate how good Shipley's is.
That's true. I love cake donuts more than the what do you call that? Oh, I can't remember the name of it. I'm spazzing on the name of it, but I like the cake donuts of Shipley's in the batter a lot.
And then our next one comes from the Nick Turn, who says, "Do you think we will lose more players after the season is over?"
Absolutely. I think so. How many more? I don't know. But I do think there are going to be 4 or 5 at least that right now Texas is at 8. Jerry and I have talked about between 12 and 13 is the number we think they're going to get to. I do think there's going to be a couple that test the portal after the season is complete. They have what, 7 more days?
5 or 7.
Yeah. Okay, 5 after the season is over, in addition to what they would normally have if you were just a normal student or what have you that had already completed their season. They get an extra certain amount of days after because of the NCAA playoffs.
And I want to go back to the portal here in just a second, but first I need to do these couple of super chats here from my son, Colt Monroe. This one, he texted me and wanted everyone to know that it didn't work right, but he wanted to say thanks everybody for the support while he was in the hospital, that he definitely appreciated everybody checking in on him. And then he also added, Clemson is overrated Texas by 1 million. And then had to talk a little trash this morning as well and say that he likes Jerry's ad more.
That's an acceptable super chat.
We'll see how much money that he spends before the end of the show. But obviously, Colt back feeling a lot better, and he is doing good. And yes, thank you everybody for checking in on
protein shakes for Colt.
That's what we're doing. We got about 25 pounds that we got to put back on. So
he lost 25 pounds.
27 to be exact.
In the last 2 months?
Well, since November 5th, so not even 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy for a young kid.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So the good news is he got released. We got to actually throw the baseball yesterday. And so that was our first time since November, a couple of days before November 5th. But so that brought a big smile to his face. So he was very happy. And Edmund Lee, thank you for your super chat. Good morning, Colt. Hook 'em. So thank you, Edmund. We appreciate that. All right, guys, let's go back to the portal for a little bit. A lot of people wanting to know where Texas might go. One of the main questions are running backs. If y'all expect Texas to pursue a running back, and if you might know who that person is, like BJS says, Fluff Bothwell has an intriguing profile.
Nothing with Texas with him at this point, but a really good young back from Oneonta. I think Alabama. I didn't say that right, but had a really good freshman year for Major Applewhite. And of course, if you evaluate somebody really well at the mid-major level, G5 level, and they have a great season, they're gone. That's what makes those jobs difficult. But he's a really good player. People like Braylon Russell's been brought up, Justice Haynes, Bobby. We'll see if Texas makes a serious push there.
Yeah, I mean, Braylon Russell, by the way, Jerry, you mentioned him. He's been on again, off again with the portal. Braylon, running back at Arkansas, he actually went in the portal earlier last week, then took his name out within like 4 hours. And then yesterday he decided to re-enter the portal. So look, that's gonna be one. Justice Haynes, you mentioned him, the running back out of Alabama, that kind of split time with Jam Miller there. He's visiting Ole Miss in South Carolina as well as Michigan. Could Texas somehow get involved? Let's see what Texas decides to do at running back, because I think it's kind of interesting where Texas could go and whether or not they're, part of it has to be how they feel about Cedric Baxter and how confident they are in his return, even though it's somewhat early in that rehab, Jerry. Could Texas wait by chance until after the spring portal and go after a running back based on where Cedric Baxter's at? They could be patient here.
Yeah.
Kenny Joe says Texas is making a huge mistake by not taking a running back. I will say this. I argue with Jerry. Jerry's on a little bit different than me. I think Texas needs to take one, personally. Jerry's like, well, maybe. You agree? I mean, you and I come out a little different on this, Jerry. And
yeah, I mean,
point, because Mine is pretty straightforward. I just think they have to have the depth and experience, and you're relying on one guy coming off off of an ACL, PCL, as well as another guy coming off a Achilles tendon. Jarrett Gibson hasn't proven he can be the guy. Jaden Blue, he's not a real running back really at this point. And then you got 2 freshmen coming in. What are you going to do if Trey White is the only healthy guy that can tote the rock next year for you?
Well, I think Jaden Blue impacts that decision as well. Look, do we expect Jaden Blue back? I don't know. I'd say it's not that we 100% know, but I think it's a lower percentage and a higher percentage, but I think that impacts it as well. If Jaden Blue returned, then, you have James Simon and Ricky Stewart coming in, and Texas still 11-2 in the playoffs as a 5 seed right now. There are very few perfect rosters out there. And I personally, look, Trey Weiser is 3rd-team All-SEC this year. Jaden Blue is a quality player if he returns, not necessarily a true runner, but a quality player in the scheme. How many running backs are going to look at that and look at Texas and say, yep, that's the situation I jumped in the portal to go to? I think that's going to be the balancing act. The tough thing is the backs that people may want, the fan base may want, may be looking at it a little differently. You just mentioned South Carolina with Justice Haynes. Rocket Sanders is gone. Would you want to go play with and be the one back with Lenoris Sellers? Or would you want to go get into a mix with 2 or 3 other backs like you just were at Alabama? Do you want to go into the same situation? Braylon Russell, the same thing. Jaquindon Jackson was the back. I mean, so I
get that. But my point is
interesting.
I get that, but that doesn't mean Texas doesn't need one.
Right. It's just can you get the guy you really want to really upgrade?
So you're saying that you may not be able to get the guy. It's not so much that they couldn't use one. It's more about what you could get and actually attain. Okay. Yeah. I get that. That's a little bit different than me. I understand that.
Because, I mean, the question is, would a kid like Justice Haynes, would he want to go into the exact same situation he was just in, headed to year 3 of his college career? Or would he want to go head in to a situation like a South Carolina where you're the dude? And I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right. I just wonder, Justice Haynes, if he could have just stayed at Alabama to be in the situation where he's one of 3 running backs. That's my question is, are you going to get into the same situation you just left? I don't know. NIL talks.
Yep. Another position that people are asking about, obviously punter has been solved, but what about kicker? T-Pod says, are we looking for a portal kicker?
If they are, I have not heard of one yet. And I would bet that they don't look for one until after the playoffs if they're going to. I don't think you want to shock the system of Bert Auburn prior to the playoffs. Shake any confidence he may have. But I have not heard of one. I know that as of a month ago, the plan was not to go after a portal kicker. But Bert's late season swoon may have something to say about that. I haven't, let's see how he finishes out this season, I guess is the best way to put it.
And then we have a question here from Champ Bailey 3, who says, hey guys, any updates on any more wide receiver and defensive tackle portal injuries that Texas has a good shot at getting?
Well, Lee Hunter from UCF will be on campus today or tomorrow. I think he was at FSU. UCF, former UCF coaches like Malzahn are making a push for some of those guys. They had the tight end Randy Pittman on campus at FSU as well. And now Mike Norvell's, he's donating all of his net worth to get those players. But which I don't blame him. If I was 2-10, I would want to keep my job as well. But look, Lee Hunter's tremendous now. I don't care. Like I've said, I think all these portal player rankings are maybe the joke of the whole industry at this point. They don't make sense. They're asinine to me. People need to try harder or try again on them or have a different thought process. Lee Hunter has the most tackles from a defensive line position in college football, interior D-line position the last 2 years, and that's playing in the Big 12. 113 tackles from a D-lineman. That's a big number. He was second to Tavondre Sweat in tackles for loss 2 years ago in the Big 12. He was a 4-star, top 100 level kid in the country when he signed with Auburn out of Mobile. That was actually 8 Mile, called Alabama and Blunt High School. down in the Mobile area, one of the more talented schools over the history of Mobile area. This guy's a really disruptive force. I mean, if Texas could win out for this guy, I mean, he is a really good football player. And again, a guy that's been in a college strength and conditioning program for 4 years now and has put on 20 pounds of good weight. And then obviously Eric Singleton Jr., the speedster out of Georgia Tech. Somebody asked in the chat, is he a wide receiver one? I don't know if he's – I mean, what's really a wide receiver one nowadays? I mean, like if you go into a program like Texas, are you going to have more targets than Ryan Wingo in year 2 or DeAndre Moore year 2 starting? I don't know the answer to that. But I think he's a really good player. And Ole Miss, I think, has put their best foot forward like they are in the portal once again. And Texas and LSU, which I don't know about that, Miami and Auburn in the mix. But the guy that ran 10.32 on the Georgia Tech track team in the 100 meters and then ran 6.68 in the 60, which was 7th in the ACC. Very productive player. He would be a really good scheme fit at Texas. Does that mean he's a WYR1, 2? I mean, I don't have the answer to that. I mean, these schools have really, really talented players if you go into a Texas. But he is a really good player. We'll see what happens with those guys early this week. Lee Hunter, I think, is a really big one.
Singleton, by the way, guys, was at Miami yesterday. So he originally was scheduled to be in Austin today and or tomorrow. Maybe it's very likely we have some more news on that situation this week or later today, excuse me.
And let's see here. This next question comes from, if I can get my mouse to work right, Brett. Brett says, hey guys, is the semifinal on our side at AT&T for sure? Some guy was saying the highest seed in the Final Four gets to pick between Arlington and Miami.
We'll double check. We thought it was AT&T though. At least I did.
Yeah, I mean, when ESPN put out their brackets, it was clearly AT&T for that for the semifinal game, which would be a potential Oregon,
Texas matchup.
Texas, yeah.
The next game, if Texas were to win this one, though, the next game is actually back in Atlanta.
Yes.
For the Peach Bowl, which would match up with Arizona State. So Texas is trying to get to the Peach Bowl essentially with a win this weekend. And the round of 8.
Yeah, Grant Thompson. Yeah, Cotton Bowl posted Texas, Clemson are vying for a spot in Arlington. Yes. I wouldn't mind if it changed to Miami, but it's not.
I think a lot of Texas fans would. And I think Steve Sarkisian would.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas had some success in that building last year about this time. Don't forget that.
No. And then our next question from Burt Reynolds Jr. We appreciate you as always. He says, how much actual production do we lose to the portal?
And I want to say this with respect to the kids, not much as far as production, but that doesn't mean these guys aren't talented players and won't go on and be really good college football players. But affecting Texas, not much. And that's just a reality of it. But again, you look at and I'm saying this with respect to the talent level Texas is recruiting and how talented some of these guys are that are leaving that just haven't been able to break through in Austin. I mean, in the college football playoff, Logan Parr is a starter at SMU. Moochie Dixon, a starter key player at SMU. Xavier Alford, a very good player, maybe the future NFL guy at Arizona State. Zach Swanson in the rotation at Arizona State. Prince Dorba was I think the number 2 pass rusher for Arizona State. So these guys leave would it shock anybody if Tassili Bobby, if he went to Arizona State and ended up being a really good pass rusher? No. So these are good players. I think there's a couple of things. They just haven't been able to break through at Texas. And then the move to the SEC changes the frame and body type Texas is looking at some position as well and has made that a little tougher. Patrick Page, you and me going to Miami if the venue changes.
Hey, I want to say this. I mean, what has Texas lost to the portal at this point from a production standpoint, Jerry? No starters, no true second string guys.
Yeah.
So to your point, they have not lost much.
No.
They will eventually lose a couple that will sting a little bit. Like, for example, if Sadir Mitchell would have stayed in the portal, that would have stung a little bit. Right? they have not lost one yet that really stings, in my opinion.
Yeah. Can early enrollees play in playoff games? No, but they can practice with the team. And by the way, for those that are coming in later here, since we're an hour in, Lance Jackson, I spoke with Lance Jackson out of Pleasant Grove. Somebody's asking, doesn't he have high school? Some kids are done. They finished finals like last Friday and they're done. Some kids are going to go through the end of this week to finish up, but majority of kids are done either now or early this week. But Lance Jackson, I spoke with him yesterday, and him and his family were on their way to Austin so he could take physical and potentially take part in practices while Texas is in the college football playoff. I think the same thing could be happening with 3 or 4 other guys Texas would love. So we'll see if Myron Charles, any other guys are on campus today, maybe watching practice for a reason. But that's actually really, really good that Texas may have 4 or 5 guys, especially if they're all defensive front guys, that take part in some practices, because that's just additional practices to spring practice coming up for all those early entry guys. So we'll see how many guys there are, but Lance Jackson for sure is in Austin right now going through physicals. I think he has to sit a couple of days after that, Bobby, and then he could start taking part in drills.
All right, Bobby, if you don't mind, let everyone know about Tile.
Yeah, absolutely. The holidays are here. It's Christmas time and nearly time to stuff those stockings. You can do just that with Tile. While it's the most wonderful time of year, it also presents a ton of challenges. Whether you're staying at home or traveling, it's a busy season, and keeping track of what matters most to you this season can feel more hectic than merry. I actually used Tile this morning. As you know, I'm traveling this week. I'm here in Austin, getting ready to go see some practice, go to a media availability with Steve Sarkisian at 11 o'clock. And I actually couldn't find my wallet. I left it in my backpack, and I thought I'd put it on a counter somewhere. So I actually hit the Tile button. It beeped. I found my wallet. Stress less this holiday season by stocking up on Life 360's Tile trackers. When you're worried about your family's safety or something goes missing, just use the Tile app. I don't have to worry. I just ring my Tile when something goes missing, and I can track down its location on the map. You can also add Tile trackers to your Life 360 and see your family and all your family's stuff in one single spot. Family-proof your family with Life 360's Tile trackers. Visit tile.com today and use code ONTEXAS to get 15% off. That's tile.com. Use code ONTEXAS to get 15% off. Thanks to the folks at tile.com for sponsoring On Texas Football. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
And we're going to get to some more questions here in a second, but I want to let people know about our newest sponsor, Future Fans. And Longhorn Nation, experiencing a deep playoff run is like nothing else in this world. It's a shared experience with family, friends, and strangers, anticipating the next matchup and living and dying on every play when game day finally arrives. You'll create memories that last a lifetime. And for the first time ever, that experience is finally here for the college football fans with the playoff, and it starts Saturday at home against Clemson. And if you have young kids or no young kids, then there's one thing you need to make sure they get to experience the magic of this playoff run, and that's Future Fans football. Trust me, this is going to be the best $50 that you're going to spend for your kids. Future Fans helps little kids become big football fans by embedding the rules of football into parallel games and activities in a way that is absolutely genius. Seriously, all you have to do is go to futurefans.com right now to see what I mean. That's futurefans.com, and let the little ones in your life experience the magic of this playoff run alongside you. There's my son Kai with his Future Fans right there. We dug into it over the weekend, looked at it a little bit, and he's all excited now for Saturday. He'll be doing all the activities in there. There's games. It definitely helps them keep engaged and stay engaged while watching the game. So be sure to check it out, futurefans.com.
Man, can you have any more? I want to know if you can have any more ornaments on that tree, Jerry. I mean, look how many. I mean, my goodness.
Krista goes all out. All out. Y'all ought to see our house. It's like Jerry said that one day. It's like the set of a Hallmark movie.
She does a good job.
It really is.
She does good. She makes me enjoy Christmas from afar.
All right.
Now, Gregory Sherman, I totally agree with this. We need we need Shaq, Charles, Kenny, and EJ for the pre-show for the TNT broadcast this Saturday. I would love that. That'd be hilarious. By the way,
yes. For those that don't know, the game will be on TNT and Max, which is a lot different, I guess I should say, than your usual ESPN, ABC, or even Fox.
Tell me Tim Brando is not on the call. Just tell me Tim Brando is not on the call.
I can check that. Hey, Bobby, why do we think it's not on ABC, ESPN, the first round of the playoffs?
Because they bought it, but because they bought the rights.
TNT just bought the rights to it.
Just like they did with the college basketball tournament.
Yeah.
CBS owns the rights to the college basketball tournament.
Is that like a multi-year long-term deal? Do we know?
I assume it is. They rarely would do a one-year deal in that way. But basically they pass off, ESPN passes off, or CBS for basketball, pass off some of the fees to other companies to actually, defray costs. With the basketball tournament, it really works because you need multiple channels and outlets. I don't understand why it would work for college football. I really don't, but we'll see. I hope the production value doesn't suffer. I'll put it that way, because it's not like TBS knows football or something. That's my one concern.
By the way, so those wondering, the broadcast crew of Dave Pash and Dusty Dvorak for the game Saturday. So they have ESPN announcers.
Maybe it's an ESPN production then.
It is
with just TNT rapping or Turner rapping.
Yeah.
That would be good. I mean, that would be better.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything better than if Dvorak has to watch Texas win a playoff game? That's all the motivation the Texas team should need.
Hey, this is good right here. We need to read this from the Commodian. Thank you for the super chat. Wanted to share, we have a brand new Longhorn born last night, my first grandchild. So congratulations. And then the Commodian says, hook 'em 37-13.
Let's do it. Congratulations. Boy or girl, you got to let us know. Congratulations. That's awesome. Love to hear about that stuff this time of year in particular. Welcoming new members to the family in December. Good stuff. Christmas presents.
Some people are asking about Trill Carter. Yeah, I saw that report. Somebody sent that to me. Blake, you sent that to us. He was in Charlotte, obviously not in Auburn, Alabama. He got shot in stomach area, but was released from the hospital and is okay.
And a baby girl, Bobby. A baby girl is what he said. So, all right, Jeff Carey. Thank you, Jeff. If we lose Saturday, Jeff saying he thinks we will win. How do we think about our season with no top 25 wins?
I think it's a great season. Not a perfect season. But I think it being the only team that made the college football playoffs back-to-back years, it proves you're here to stay. You're not a one-hit wonder. Continued ascending of the program. Sign the number one recruiting class. Going to do I've got A- in the portal right now. It could end up being an A+ very easily. I think all systems are go for Texas. And would it be the perfect season? Would it be what everybody wanted? It never is. There's only one team that hoists the trophy at the end. But I think it would be another tremendous season for Texas. But it would definitely be a sour taste in the mouth, and this chat would be wild.
I would say this. If you would have told me that would have been the outcome prior to the season, I probably would take it. Right? Because that also comes with beating A&M, beating OU, beating Arkansas.
Getting to the SEC title game.
Yeah. I probably would take it. Now that we're here, it would be disappointing.
Right.
I mean, because let's be fair. I mean, Texas is 11.5-point favorites in this game.
Yeah. If
they lose to Clemson, something's going to go materially wrong on Saturday. And that's the problem. So I could see it both ways. I think if you look at long term, like Jerry discussed, I would agree with it. Short term, what happened would be my first question. And so I would be somewhat disappointed about that for sure.
All right, our next super chat comes from MP Houston. He says, so glad to hear Colt continues to get better. Hook 'em. Thank you, MP. I am very glad as well, and so is my wallet for sure. Then let's see. Our next one here comes from Ambassador of Texas. Says Texas must use blue and arch to win the Natty. Hook 'em.
I agree. I mean, look, the thing that has happened to Texas in the last month of this season is they haven't executed in the red zone. Period. They're scoring 3 points more often or turning the ball over than they were. I mean, look, Quinn had 2 turnovers against A&M in the red zone, right? 1 pick and one fumble. He should have had an interception in the red zone against Georgia as well. The turnovers have to stop, and executing has to begin inside the red zone. Enough of scoring 3 instead of 7. And I don't know that Jaden Blue necessarily helps you in the red zone unless it's in pass, right? I think Arch definitely helps your run game. And I would bet that we see a steady diet of that if Texas is going to be successful and maximize. That's my point. I'm to the point now where, look, it's time to throw everything aside.
Yeah.
We've got to this point. Everything has to go onto the table. You know, the chips are being played right now. The game's afoot.
Yeah.
I think you have to do everything you can. And I do believe that may mean Arch Manning in the red zone in certain situations. Not every situation, but in certain situations and against certain teams. Some teams may be able to handle it better than others too. So you have to pick your spots, but everything is on the table for me right now.
All right, and then we have one here from this next one from Trace Little. Trace Little says, can Willstone kick field goals?
Sure, but I don't think he didn't win the job. That's what people. Oh, well, let's just switch field goal kickers. He didn't win the job, and Bert Auburn is still, was he 14 or 15 of 21? 14 of 21 this season.
I mean, and here's the thing with Bert too. He made David Keith Williams said it very well earlier in the chat. Bert made 19 in a row last year and made the most field goals, I believe, in the country. He's got he doesn't have a kicking problem. He has a right hash problem. If you take away the right hash, he's a 90% kicker. He's got a right hash problem. Now, Sark, it's very hard to be a play caller. And the way Sark likes to call plays, and when you get in the field goal range, only call things to the left side of the field. That's that's a tough thing to do because you're making yourself easier to defend. But Bert has a right hash issue. I don't think he has a kicking issue. It's one spot on the field that's either in his head or a little bit mechanical right now, if you just look at the numbers.
And then we have one from Blake. I like the name Blake. And he says, are the coaches going to have to be proactive with NIL and player retention, or do they wait for a player to approach them for renegotiation?
Both. Both. It's not one way or the other. And those conversations take place on a regular basis, especially this time of year. I think that last week, Sark gave players some very clear indication of what's going on in the future. And so it's a little bit of both, Blake. It's not one size fits all.
And our next super chat from Splenda Daddy, formerly Sugar Daddy. And thank you for your super chats as always. Why do y'all think red zone play calling has changed? 3 had some great throws on the run early in the season, but we've seen nothing like that recently.
Has it been? Is he still injured a little bit? He's fighting through it. Sark mentioned that. He's still not 100%. I do think that, for whatever reason, Quinn he's just not performed well in the red zone at times this year. Put the ball in harm's way. I don't know that red zone play calling has changed all that much either, by the way. You know, Quinn was not good in the red zone a year ago. He's not a guy that's done that well in the red zone over time, in my opinion. And when I will add this, it is exacerbated when Texas can't run the football, because that really takes the play action kind of out of it for him, and diminishes that value, and then the windows become even tighter. So I will say this: I'm not sure anybody's great in the red zone when it's third and 10, third and goal from the 10. You know, there's also situational football. But you know, Texas needs more out of Quinn. They need more out of Sark. There's no two ways about it. I mean, it's not just sitting there putting it all on Quinn. So the whole offense needs to be better in the red zone.
And then UT Tyler guy with another super chat. Thank you again. Gents, can we talk about our staff? I expect Choice and Jackson to leave at some point, but look at our coaching stability. Sark has done a great job.
Yeah, I think this is always an interesting discussion, because this discussion has changed due to NIL. These G5 jobs are no man's land for people that are making a really good living at a blue blood university as an assistant or coordinator. I mean, just look at Major Applewhite, okay? What they won a bowl game, I think, Western Michigan, right? His freshman running back, who's a really good player. Great evaluation in high school, in the portal. I mean, these are tough jobs nowadays, and it'll be interesting to see. You've seen coaches, head coach at UCLA walk away, head coach at UCF walk away. You've seen multiple coaches. That South Alabama's coach 2 years ago, Major was the OC, left to be the DC at Bama. These guys are wanting out of these jobs more than they're wanting these jobs. So it's going to take then a UNC pops open and say, hey, man, would they take a look at Tashard? Oh, they got Bill Belichick. I mean, so these jobs are more difficult than ever. Do you really want a G5 job, or is the NFL better long term if you just want to ascend your path? G5 jobs are really tough outside of a few of Boise and a few of those. They're really tough jobs, because in the NIL landscape, if you evaluate a really good player, you aren't holding them. And then the guys that are in the portal that you have to sift through, there's a lot of malcontents. And that can mess up a really good locker room in a hurry. So those G5 jobs are tough. It depends on how much you want to bet on yourself in a situation is a lot more difficult than it was 5 years ago.
Some P4 jobs are tough. Just ask Chip Kelly and Gus Malzahn.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, like, if you're let's say Kyle Flood, who's already been a head coach at Rutgers, I think there's maybe one or two jobs that if they were offered to a guy like that, he would have a hard time turning down. He was mentioned for Boston College. It went to Bill O'Brien. That probably would have been it. He's a Jersey, New York guy, upstate, sells family up there, blah, 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 blah. It's the reason he was hired at Rutgers. But how many of those jobs are there for guys on the staff? I mean, how badly do you want to be a head coach right now in college football until this thing levels out a little bit? I wouldn't want any part of a G5 job unless it's Boise.
And then Carlos, thank you, Carlos. He says, I bought my tickets for this game. It's the first one this season I'm going to be able to attend. Well, you picked one heck of one to attend. Hope to see y'all there. Hook 'em from the Rio Grande Valley.
From the RGV, there were a couple people I met from the Valley at the last Texas game against Kentucky as well. Look, if you're coming in, have some fun, right? I mean, this is a big game for the Longhorns, and I will say this: I'm a little concerned about whether or not how big a home field advantage DKR will be, because I'll tell you why. I think that obviously Clemson's going to travel some and all this other stuff, but Texas is not going to have control. I don't know that they're going to have the light show like they do. It's not going to be the normal, defense on the scoreboard type stuff, because it's not a genuine home game. how is the crowd going to react to that? Right? I mean, how is Texas? Obviously, there'll be more Texas fans there, but how, without some kind of coaxing or whatever you want to call it, how do you get the sound going to actually create the home field advantage? I hope that Texas fans are thinking about that, because I want it to be a true home field advantage, and the NCAA, I think, is trying to take that away, in my opinion. And so fans are going to have to take it into their own hands in that way. So just think about that. If you're going to the game, try to take it into your own hands, because there's not going to be anybody out there coaxing you into it. The NCAA is controlling the PA, the pregame, etc.
And before we get to our last few questions for the day, Bobby, can you let everyone know about John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group last time?
I absolutely can. John has been with us all year, and we really appreciate him and everything he's done for us at On Texas Football. Guys, as a proud UT alum, John has served for 15 years as a Dallas, Texas Exes board member, and is now helping lead the build-out of the Collin County Texas Exes chapter. John also wants to remind everyone that while the holiday season can be busy, it can also provide some downtime to really focus on positioning your financial plans to enter 2025 on the right path. So John and his team at Longhorn Wealth want to remind everyone to take advantage of their offer of a free 90-minute private consultation to evaluate how a certified financial planner like John can help you identify the best financial strategies and solutions to maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and secure your legacy. Call John and the Longhorn Wealth team, 972-707-4900, or go online to www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your free private consultation today. John hopes to see you all in Austin to cheer on the Longhorns in the game versus Clemson. Hook 'em from John and the Longhorn Wealth Management staff.
Hey, by the way, Blake, we haven't talked about any of this, but look, congrats to North Crowley. It's a huge win. Beating Duncanville, two-time defending state champ. Team that have been, I think, there's 5 straight state championships, if not 4 in 6A. Now, that's a huge win for North Crowley program, because the year before they got dotted against Duncanville, who was an amazingly talented team. But Ray Gates, great guy. Every time I go by there, the school, obviously John Turntine. Jonathan Cunningham signed with Texas. John Turntine at Texas Lean in 2026. Very talented group. Congrats to them. Congrats to Westlake taking down North Shore. Similar. I mean, those Duncanville and North Shore played each other. Was it 5 years in a row? I've lost track of time a little bit. 4 or 5 years in a row they played each other. So North Crowley, Westlake. Congrats to Riley Dodge, South Lake Carroll, getting back to the state championship game. And then obviously the games will be Thursday and Friday at Jerry World before the college football playoffs begin Saturday in Austin for Texas. But if you have a chance, watch Carthage too, because Scott Surratt's getting close to some records that I don't think will ever be broken in high school football in the state of Texas, ever. He's won 9 state finals, and he's about to win 10.
Important to mention Vandegrift in Austin also playing in the state championship game there. Highland Park, Smithson Valley. Smithson Valley beat Angleton, didn't they?
Yes, you are correct.
All right. Also, yeah, there's a lot of teams vying for it all this weekend. So good luck to everybody that's out there that has kids playing in it or relatives, what have you. Should be a fun week.
And by there, Highland Park. There you go. I was going to mention that Randy Allen with his fedora coaching in Jerry World. Look, Salina. Been a while for Salina since they've been back in the state championship game. There's that Carthage, La Vega. La Vega, very talented, but Scott Surratt is the favorite, I believe, win his 10th state championship, and his son's a junior, and some of those kids are juniors. So if they get it done this year, they're going to be a heavy favorite next year. The best beer maker is in the state title game once again in 2AD2, Shiner. They had a good run with the Brooks brothers, then they were out a couple of years. Then Gunter. Gunter's really good, Blake.
Yeah, I've seen that firsthand. They're really good.
Gunter's really good, small school team.
Yeah.
Hey, you talked about Shiner, another team down from that area that's in the championship game. Columbus
Yes.
Yep.
Nobles.
is also in the. They beat Edna down
Yeah.
there.
All the Shobles kids are playing on that team, and they had the six-man kid that moved in prior to senior year is now signed with NC State as a running back. Also, a really good basketball player, was a huge addition for them. But Columbus, the crazy thing about this is where injuries, you got to get lucky at any level. Hitchcock won that district. They beat Columbus, and their quarterback tore his ACL in a first-round playoff game.
Oh,
Right.
the one that signed with Tech?
Lloyd Jones, the one going to Tech.
Hey, Jerry, by the way, Grayson Rigdon backed out of NC State. He now committed. Yeah, I think Colt told me, if I remember correctly, he committed to Wyoming so he can play basketball and football.
That makes sense. That's a good decision. The quarterback, the Shoble quarterback going to TCU, I believe. The linebacker, the other Shobles kid, is a really good player. I need to look to see where he signed. Somebody will let us know, but the linebacker is a really good player for them at Columbus. I mean, they're all NFL kids. I mean, and Matt's the head coach there, I believe.
So good week of football ahead, guys.
Jet Surratt is at a junior at Carthage for Burn Orange Horn and Patrick Page. They were talking about that. He's a junior. A lot of Carthage's top players on that team are juniors, and they have some good young kids, obviously. A quarterback from Columbus going to Baylor. I can't remember if it was Baylor or TCU. He's committed to one, whichever one. Oh, KJ Lacey. We need to give him a little run, too. Thank you, Damone. KJ Lacey got MVP of the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Game Saturday, guys. That's culminating a really tremendous high school career. His coach, Jeff Kelly at Saraland, was the head coach for the Alabama team, a former standout quarterback at Southern Miss, played in the NFL, CFL, great offensive mind, run a lot of the same stuff Sark does. But KJ Lacey, 327 yards, 4 touchdowns, got MVP of that game. Alabama beat Mississippi. For those that have never watched that game, it's actually a really cool game. They've kept together for years and years. I've been doing it 2 or 3 times, where it's not every best player, because some kids get hurt or opt to not play if they're an early enrollee. But that's a really talented game. A lot of big-time players in that game. And congrats to KJ Lacey on getting MVP of that. And he's supposed to join us for Longhorn live stream Wednesday night to talk about that before he heads off to Texas in January.
All right, y'all, we got a couple left before we get out of here. This one from Seth. He says, will we see an increase in assistant salaries given the difficulties you outlined with the group of 5 jobs?
Will we see a decrease in head coaching salaries as well? Since Mike Norvell, if you're just now joining us, the Florida State coach, giving half his salary this year to NIL for Florida State. A week after, or several days after, Brian Kelly and his wife gave $1 million to NIL at LSU. I find it interesting that both coaches underperformed and now want to spend money in the portal, some of their own money in the portal. Will assistant coaches' salaries go up? They've been on a steady incline really for the last 30 years. The big jump came probably when coordinators started making over $1 million. And that happened, I believe, in the early 10s. So 2010 or so is when a Will Muschamp became really highly coveted, right? And I think he had right at $1 million salary. Ever since then, they went steadily up. They've probably doubled in the last 10 years, Seth. I don't think there's not, like, I don't think they're going to double again in the next 10 years. But I do believe that I believe that salaries in general are going to go up. I think that because of the university's need to fund $20+ million in NIL initiatives every year, some of that, there's going to be a halt on some of that spending from a coaching perspective. I don't see another double in the next 10 years, is what I'm saying. I don't think we're going to see a $20 million a year head coach, for example, in 10 years.
By the way, yeah, no doubt. Somebody's asking about Micah Hudson. we've addressed that. If I was an A&M fans, I'd be even keel on that. I mean, he couldn't break in to the lineup at Texas Tech, and I know where he was formerly ranked, but we'll see what happens. I think it'd be a little aggressive to think he's going to come in and suddenly be a 50, 60 catch, 1,000-yard guy. So I'd kind of keep my expectations here until he proves them. A&M, by the way, 3 guys A&M picked up in the portal: receiver that couldn't get on the field at Tech, corner that was benched at Georgia, but Humphrey, good player, but still didn't keep his job at Georgia, and Zeno, who's been in and out as a starter last year for UAB. Good players to compete. I'm not sure they're getting all conference difference makers there right now. I think they'll add some good portal additions because they have strong NIL. But the 3 guys they have right now, I'm sure that fans are jumping up and down about. I would say keep your expectations more here.
And we will close with this super chat, and I got the graphic for it here. But first, let me read it from Jeff Carey once again. Thank you, Jeff. He says, Blake, the top 10 most watched games are out on Sports Media Watch. I did a little bit better than that. I think I got a little more than 10. But, guys, Georgia versus Texas, both times are the top 2 most watched games this season. And Texas on there a few other times. Texas versus Texas A&M, for example. And then Texas versus Michigan and Texas versus Oklahoma all cracked the top 20.
Come on, Oklahoma, be better. That game would be 10 million. Get your together. Stop getting manscaped.
Hey, look at Georgia with 3 of the top 4.
Yeah.
You know,
if you have the Alabama game in college football.
Yeah. Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. Those look like the main ones. Maybe Michigan, you can put them in there.
Yeah. By the way, I do think this. Look, if USC could ever together too, Oregon and USC would be a big TV benefit for the Big Ten.
Yeah, not sure. Not sure where that's going.
Yeah, I'm not sure USC is going to.
Look, Texas is doing its part. I mean, one of the things that was talked about at some level is, this is from the TV contract standpoint, Jerry, and we talk about NIL all the time. We talk about TV money and what it all means. There was a proposal out there that Ohio State, I think, put forward, their previous AD, that really there are 8 teams, not 16, not 24, that really drove the majority of television revenue. Texas was one of those, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, and there was one more. There were 8 teams, he said, that drove TV revenue. Texas was one of those. So while we look at this and say, oh, well, there's a Power 4 conference and there's an SEC and a Big Ten. I mean, look, you don't see Ole Miss anywhere on that list of most watched games. Not the top 20, at least.
Yep.
You don't see Mississippi State. You don't see South Carolina.
By the way, we had a little discussion last night. If Ryan Day ended up getting whacked at Ohio State, I said, no chance Marcus Freeman turns down the Ohio State job if he's offered. You're seeing the reason why plus NIL right now. Like, because somebody asked last night, if Ryan Day got fired, who would they hire? And I said, well, Marcus Freeman has Notre Dame in the playoffs and was a great player at Ohio State. He's the obvious choice for them. And then it got into, would he turn it down? I say no chance he would turn down that job. 0.
I don't know about that. I used to call Marcus Freeman on the phone back in the day when he was a recruit.
Bobby, you have to take that job. You can't turn it down, say at Notre Dame.
We'll see. I think that, it's not, the grass is not always greener for these coaches. And I think some of them yesterday, Freeman got a 6-year extension. Yeah. My take on this is the grass isn't always greener, even though you think it might be. And a lot of people, I mean, look at Rich Rodriguez right now, who went from West Virginia to Michigan to Arizona and basically just, fell on his face a little bit. He's back at West Virginia now. We'll see.
All right, guys. Well, that's
everybody's saying Freeman signed an extension. What does that really mean?
Depends what's devil's in the details.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Want to thank them along with Duck Camp, Factor, Manscaped, Future Fans, and Tile, all for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in. The great questions, the super chats. Bobby, I know it's an action-packed, loaded week and weekend right here on Texas Football, but what can folks expect later today?
Yeah, all week long, we're being brought to you by Duck Camp and the March to the College Football Playoff. So make sure you tune in all week long with them. We've got Steve Sarkisian at the mic at 11 o'clock. CJ Vogel and I will both be there. Then we've got the Winning Drive, Rod Babers, Bob Shipley, and CJ. Jerry and I come back with Talking Ball later tonight. And then later this week, just to put this out there for you, we are expected to be at Duck Camp's corporate store, I think it is, over on East Cesar Chavez. Please join us over there one morning on Thursday or Friday morning. Please come out and hang out with us. We may be at a couple other spots as well that we'll talk about this week as we get ready for this big playoff week for the Longhorns. A lot of stuff going on. Please come out and visit with us. Also, this is going to be probably the last week that we can get you your mugs and hats on schedule. If you want to get that for Christmas and put that in a stocking or have it for a gift for a friend or family member, go to shop.ontexasfootball.com, shop.ontexasfootball.com. We're getting those orders out as soon as we get them in the same day. So please be cognizant of that. The 25th, less than 10 days away now for everybody. So please get out there and get these shop.ontexasfootball.com.
And we would also appreciate if you'd hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime we go live, post content, breaking news, whatever it may be. And that way you don't miss a thing. And of course, we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Welcome.